Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to the History Squad. Now, if you go back into the 100 Years' War, the English, with their bowmen, had pretty much ruled the battlefields of France, Agincourt, Crécy, Poitiers, just to name some of the main ones. But in the summer of 1429, this was all about to change. After the French victory at Orléans, you have the inspiration of Joan d'Arc, the Maid of Orléans, and the French army had been reorganised, was now disciplined, and it had finally learned how to deal with those dreaded English and Welsh bowmen. This video is all about the Battle of Patay. This isn't quite the beginning of the end. To quote a famous British politician, this is the beginning of the end of the 100 Years' War. Before we go on to the Battle of Patay, there's a series of events and battle sieges that we must quickly cover. Now, if you remember back at the Siege of Orléans, the Earl of Salisbury had been killed by that cannon shot onto the battlements of the castle there. And so we have the Earl of Suffolk who's in charge, and he made a major mistake when he withdrew from this Siege of Orléans. He disbanded his army. He sent men to bolster garrisons, and he divided his forces. He is actually at the town of Jargeau, and when the French actually get there, the French army, now this disciplined army led by Alençon, La Hire is there. La Hire, it's derived from hérisson, the French word for hedgehog. He was a prickly, spiky character. Now, at this siege of Jargeau, the English refused to surrender. The Earl of Suffolk is in there, but the French have brought up some mighty guns, and one of them is a mortar, and they demolish a tower, but still the English won't surrender. And then negotiations between the Earl of Suffolk and La Hire are ongoing when Alençon hears about it. He says, no, you pack it in. Well, Jeanne d'Arc then accompanies the troops in an assault on Jargeau, and she's hit on the head and knocked to the ground, but she still urges the troops forward. Around about this time, an English cannon fires and nearly kills Alençon. But the garrison is captured, and those English common soldiers that are left alive are killed, put to the sword. But as normal, the noblemen are taken captive because they're worth money. Amongst them, the Earl of Suffolk. So now the English have lost one of their key commanders. Now, while this has all been going on, Fastolf, one of our great commanders, has left Paris with around 4,000 men, a relieving army. So the French are aware of this, and they are aware that they have got to move on. And it's where Jeanne d'Arc, the influence of the Maid of Orléans, is really serious, because she wants the path cleared to Rheims, so that the King of France, Charles VII, can make his way to Rheims and be crowned. Just a note here, he's not with the army. He's not the bravest of characters, let's put it this way, but I'll tell you now, Jeanne d'Arc, in these little sieges that actually carry on, she is very, very brave, because they take on Jargeau, they get Meung and Beaugency. They capture them all. And it's then that they have this business, this idea from Jeanne d'Arc. Advance, fight, move forward. And it's when they advance from their last siege that they manage to surprise the English. So let's get on. 18th of June, 1429, the middle of nowhere, the Battle of Patay. The reason the English are about to be caught at Patay is quite straightforward. Fastolf, his army from Paris, was actually a relieving force for Beaugency. When they learnt that there was a great French force there, Fastolf realised he'd been wrong-footed. Now, you've got to understand that Fastolf's force, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 men, they were not all English. England had a real problem. There was the bubbling back in England, the politics and that, of the Wars of the Roses. It was just beginning now to fester. Fastolf realised that he couldn't rely 100% on his troops. Yes, he had some great English archers, but they numbered hundreds. Half, I think, of his force was what's commonly known as milice, faux French. They were mercenaries. They were actually working for the English, but you couldn't rely on them. And morale was very low. Now transfer that morale idea to the French army. Jeanne d'Arc, I've got her here. The Maid of Orléans, that great banner. You look at her and wow, what an inspiration. She fights with the troops. She's been wounded with an arrow. She's been wounded here. She's been wounded there. And just the sight of that standard on the battlefield really was a morale booster for the French. An interesting reflection, the English didn't know much about her at this stage. They weren't going, OMG, it's Jeanne d'Arc. They didn't really know about her. But what Falstaff really does know, that he can't rely on his army. Now, just before the Battle of Patay, Lord John Talbot reinforces Falstaff with his small army. He's got about 40 lances, that's armoured men on horseback, and 200 English archers. Talbot now, he's less experienced than Falstaff, and he wanted to advance on into the French. Come on, let's get stuck in. But Falstaff says, no, hang on a second. Let's retire, find a strong position. Remember, the bowmen of England and Wales, they're great if they've got their wooden stakes or they've got a wood behind them or something. They can then not be outflanked. But if they're out in the open, they're easy meat. Now, the Patay area, on large, is a great plain. It's a poor part of France. There are some copses and a few hedges, but nothing decisive to hide an English army or protect an English army of around 4,000 men. Now, the French don't wait. So while the English are going, no, we should retire, and one wants to attack, the French are coming on. Their force is about 6,000 disciplined, well-armed, well-trained troops. Don't forget, the English have the milice, the faux French amongst their numbers, who Falstaff doesn't trust that much. Now, the French put in front of their army the vanguard, the spearhead, 180 heavily armed knights with other men-at-arms, armed and on horseback, together around 1,500. This vanguard is led by the great spiky Frenchmen La Hire and Xaintrailles. So they know exactly what they're doing, and then everything stops. I love it. 12 o'clock, it's time for lunch. The French stop, and I've got this image of La Hire and Xaintrailles. They're all there having their red wine, and on the English are further on down, they've stopped. But the English are hampered by their baggage train, whereas the French are an attacking force. Their baggage train can catch up. The English are going with their baggage train, so they can only go as fast as the slowest wagon. Behind them, their rear guard, they leave several hundred bowmen. And these bowmen, basically walking backwards, they're in a little copse, and around 2 o'clock, the French begin their advance. La Hire, with his advance party there, the vanguard, they spook or startle a stag. And here we go. I've made a model. And here is the stag. As the stag breaks cover, the English don't see the French. They see the stag. Halloo, halloo, they shout. And the French, the English are there. They don't break ranks or anything like that. They send a message back to Alençon, who's in command of the main French army, this massive army. Together, 6,000 men at least. And Alençon has with him Jeanne d'Arc. She's not in the vanguard. She wanted to be, but she's with the main army. The message is, we found the English, and the vanguard attack. They don't give the English a moment's rest. No hearse, no hedge of spikes or anything. They catch the bowmen totally unaware, and they ride them down. What my model shows you is the mounted cavalry going through the disorganised bowmen, some of them running away, and the tail end of the baggage train. But the French don't actually stop. Once they've taken out the rear guard of the English, they then advance onto the main English army. And that's where there's a problem. Talbot wanted to make a stand. And Fastolf says, no, we shouldn't stand here. We should move to the top of that hill there. And the two separate. But Fastolf then gives Talbot 400 bowmen to reinforce him. But they haven't got their wooden stakes, and they're trying to hammer them in the ground when this massive vanguard simply ploughs into them. Talbot is captured. Fastolf has it on his toes. Now, Fastolf, some people say, oh, that was cowardly. But Fastolf, don't forget, he wanted to move back. He wanted to find a better position. Fastolf takes with him a large chunk of the English army. Now, there are conflicting accounts of how many English were killed. I've read some saying, oh, there were 2,000 killed. When you read some of the original accounts, 300 to 400 may have been killed, and many were killed in the pursuit. But Fastolf now, he retires. He has to go all the way to Paris. I think they did 60 miles in 2 nights or something like that, and it was incredible. But when he makes his way to the English commander to report what's happened, that's the Duke of Bedford, he's immediately stripped of his garter as a member of the Knights' Garter. Later on, that's reinstated when there's a court of inquiry. Meanwhile, Lord John Talbot has been captured, and he's presented to Alençon, that great French nobleman who had recently been released because his ransom had been paid to the English. And Alençon wanted to kind of mock John Talbot, but John Talbot looks up to him and he simply says, "Fortunes of war." And I like to think he would have said it in a nobleman's accent. "Fortunes of war, dear chap." Or was it be French? I don't know the French, was it? Is it fortune de guerre? I don't know. You could put me right. But it's a sad reflection here, because Talbot, I think, was in the wrong. He should have stayed with the main force. He shouldn't have divided it. He should have listened to Fastolf, who was the more experienced soldier. But there we have it. Patay, it's a major defeat for the English. And it's the beginning of the end of the 100 Years' War. So now the road was open to Reims, and Charles VII could actually be crowned officially King of France at Reims Cathedral, which in fact took place on the 17th of July, 1429. Now, although he'd been known as King of France since 1422, he was also known as King of Bourges, because the English occupy such a large part of France. And the reason he was able to be crowned in Reims was down to Joan d'Arc, Joan of Arc, because she knew that once he was crowned officially the King of France, it will unite France together as a country. And this was really the turning point in the 100 Years' War, because the crowning of Charles VII unites France together under his rule. At last, they have a strong leader. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video of ours, the Battle of Patay. As you can appreciate, this Englishman with some Welsh blood, it was a little bit difficult because it being a French victory. However, La Hire, that French hero, happens to be a hero of mine. Don't tell the French that this old Englishman has a Frenchman as a bit of a hero. Now, if you liked the video, you enjoyed it, like, share and subscribe. And if you'd like to support our channel further, why not have a look at joining our Patreon community? The link is in the description. Now, before I go, quick shout out to some of our Patreon members. We've got Ryan Hawkins. I love that surname, Hawkins. It's like a pirate, isn't it? John St. John, great. And Alexander Turner. Wonderful names. Hey guys, thanks a million. Bye for now.